Hi, this is Christine with Eidman Development. Today I'd like to walk you through a quick import showing how you can use Importacular to mark email addresses in the Razor's Edge Do Not Contact. So this is not checking the box for the constituent record to say do not contact the constituent. This is setting up an import saying these email addresses should be marked do not contact in the Razor's Edge. So let's go ahead and access our file and take a quick look. So I've set up my file here. I'm going to work with some sample data, and I'm working with a list that says I've got email only. So this list does have first name, last name, and email address. And we're going to build a template from scratch showing how to work with that information. We don't have a lot of information to work with, but we don't need it because we're just going to be marking those email addresses as do not contact in Razor's Edge. So to start, we do have to map a constituent. I'm going to say that these are all individuals just because that's what we're working with here. If you did have organizations, you might need to work with combined, but that's a few more steps than I want to cover today. So working with my individuals here, I'm going to give my constituent mapping a name. And you can see that it has already linked the first name field as well as the last name field. So one thing just to point out, you may want to consider using the field settings. If you don't want the data in this file to overwrite in Razor's Edge, you can uncheck both of those boxes. If you need to use casing, you can do that as well. I'm just going to go ahead and have those marked not to update Razor's Edge. The other thing I do want to point out is that I do have to fill in something for primary addressee and salutation. So that's because primary addressee and salutation are required in my database. They may or may not be in yours, but they are in mine. So I have to fulfill anything that's a required field. Don't have to update it, I just have to fulfill it. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to select a formula and I'm going to mark don't update anyone. So that fulfills my requirement of setting something there, but it also means that I maintain my data in Razor's Edge. I'm going to go ahead and save that. So once you've mapped everything on that constituent that you need, because it's required, definitely do need those names just for the purpose of matching, but also whatever's required, then we want to make sure we have anything else that's required. So if you have a required constituent attribute or a required constituent code, we do also need to add that. So I'm going to work with a constituent code because again, in my database, this is a required field. So I'm just going to pick a default value just because I want to make sure that I don't get any exceptions. I'm going to uncheck both of those boxes. Again, I don't want to add this to anyone, but I want to make sure I've fulfilled the requirement. Once you've filled all of those requirements, we do also need to map that email address. So I'm going to come here to my address tab. I'm going to click on my phone email link mappings. We're going to name this email. We're going to link our email address here as the phone number. We're going to use our default values to assign it to a phone type. So at this point, we also want to do what we need with our do not contact. So the point of this sample email was to be able to mark everyone on this list and their email addresses as that email address is do not contact. So I'm actually going to work with my default values here. So when you see this box in the state that it's in right now, where there's a black box in the middle, that's a neutral state. If I click on it once, then it becomes an unchecked state. And then if I click on it again with a check mark in there, now it's in the checked state. So if I leave it like this, what's going to happen is that any email address on this list is going to get that check mark of do not contact. So a couple of other things to show you though, because once we save that, we do need to come to our mapping screen here and access our area settings. So with our area settings, we need to check a couple of things. One, this is defaulted. It should say use phone mapping as a lookup. We definitely want to do that. We want that email address to help us find this constituent in Razor's Edge. The second thing we want to check is we do want to use this second option here to add a new phone when no existing match is found, otherwise update matched phone. What that's going to let us do is to find this email address in Razor's Edge and update the email address in Razor's Edge. So what that's going to update right now is the email type that we selected, that phone type that we selected, and it's also going to update that do not contact. So if we wanted to prevent it from changing that phone type, we can come back to our phone mapping, and on the row for phone type, we can tell it to not update existing phone records. So if we wanted to uncheck that box, now the only thing that's going to change is that on our existing phone records, we're going to add that do not contact as the icon of the symbol marking out the phone on that row for the phone record. You could also add a checkbox for constituent wants no email if you wanted to. You would do that from the constituent mapping. And you would check the box here for requests no email. You could also map a solicit code or a consent record if you wanted to, but those are not necessary. I hope that this has been helpful in explaining to you how you can add that do not contact symbol to existing email addresses in the Razor's Edge using Importacular. Thank you so much and have a great day.